Dear woman, listen to me carefully, because this message may be reaching you at the exact moment you need it most. You have survived things you never thought you would survive. You have smiled while carrying pain that nobody knew about. You have encouraged other people while secretly wondering who was going to encourage you. You have been strong for everyone else, even on the days when you felt like falling apart. But I want you to hear this. Your current situation is not the final chapter of your life. God is not finished with you. There are changes happening behind the scenes that you cannot see yet. There are doors you have not discovered. There are opportunities you have not imagined. There's a stronger version of you waiting to emerge from everything you have been through. And God is about to change your life. Not because you have never struggled, but because your struggle taught you something. It taught you how to stand. It taught you how to recognize your worth. It taught you that you cannot keep giving pieces of yourself to people who never valued the whole of you. So, dear woman, stop looking at where you are and assuming that this is where you will remain. God can change your direction in one moment. The season that broke you can become the season that built you. The rejection that made you cry can become the rejection that redirected you. The ending you thought was destroying your life may have actually been making room for something greater. So lift your head, take a deep breath, and listen closely. Your life is changing. Dear woman, I am speaking to you today because I know there is a woman listening who has almost given up on herself. Maybe you have been waiting for things to change, waiting for your finances to improve, waiting for the right opportunity, waiting for peace, waiting for someone to finally recognize your value, waiting for life to become easier. But sometimes God does not change the situation first. Sometimes He changes you first. He changes the way you think. He changes what you tolerate. He changes the people you allow close to you. He changes your priorities. He changes your confidence. And suddenly, the same woman who once begged people to stay begins to understand that she can walk away. The same woman who constantly questioned herself begins to trust herself. The same woman who thought her best days were behind her begins to realize that her greatest chapter may still be ahead. That is the transformation I want you to understand. God is not simply trying to give you a better life. He is preparing you to become the woman who can handle the better life. And when that transformation begins, everything starts to look different. You stop chasing. You start choosing. You stop begging. You start believing. You stop explaining your worth. You start living it. You stop being afraid of losing people. You become more concerned about losing yourself. So today, I want you to open your heart and receive this message, because there are 7 powerful truths every woman needs to remember when she is standing at the edge of a new season. Dear woman, there comes a moment in your life when you have to stop asking, "What do they think about me?" and start asking, "What does God know about me?" Because if you build your identity on people's opinions, you will spend your entire life trying to become somebody you were never created to be. One person will tell you that you are not enough, and you will believe it. Another person will criticize your appearance, your choices, your past, your dreams, and slowly you will begin to question yourself. But God sees beyond all of that. He sees the woman underneath the disappointment. He sees the woman underneath the mistakes. He sees the woman who kept going when nobody applauded her. Maybe you have spent years comparing yourself to other women. You look at someone else's life and think, why isn't my life like that? Why does she have the relationship I wanted? Why does she have the career I wanted? Why does everything seem to work for her while I'm still trying to figure myself out? But you have to understand something. Comparison will make you blind to your own journey. You cannot measure your life using somebody else's timeline. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not less valuable because your journey looks different. Think about a seed. When you put a seed into the ground, you cannot see what is happening underneath the soil. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. Days pass. Sometimes weeks pass. But underneath the surface, roots are forming. The seed is changing before anyone can see the evidence. Your life can be the same way. You may look around and think nothing is changing, but God can be working on things you cannot see yet. He can be developing your character, strengthening your confidence, changing your mindset, and preparing you for opportunities that have not arrived yet. So stop judging your progress only by what you can see. There was a woman who spent years believing she was not capable of achieving anything significant. Every time she had an idea, someone told her it would never work. Every time she tried something new, somebody reminded her of her previous failures. Eventually, she stopped trying. She became comfortable with disappointment because disappointment had become familiar. Then one day, she decided to do something different. She stopped asking everybody for permission to believe in herself. She started learning. She started improving. She started taking small steps. Nothing changed overnight, but she changed. And that was the beginning. She didn't suddenly become fearless. She simply decided that fear would no longer make her decisions. That is what I want you to understand, dear woman. You do not have to wake up tomorrow and have everything figured out. You do not need to become perfect. You do not need to have all the answers. You simply need to stop allowing the voices of other people to become louder than the purpose God placed inside you. Maybe someone called you difficult when you finally started setting boundaries. Maybe someone called you selfish when you stopped sacrificing your peace for everybody else. Maybe someone said you had changed when you finally learned to say no. Let them say it. Sometimes people become uncomfortable when the version of you they benefited from no longer exists. The woman who used to answer every call may become the woman who protects her time. The woman who used to explain every decision may become the woman who simply makes her decision and moves forward. The woman who used to chase approval may become the woman who knows her value without needing applause. That is not arrogance, that is growth. And there is a difference between being arrogant and finally understanding your worth. You don't have to walk into every room demanding attention. You don't have to prove that you're better than anybody. Real confidence is quieter than that. Real confidence says, I know who I am. I know what I am working toward. I know what I will and will not accept. And I don't need everyone to understand me. Dear woman, your past may contain chapters that you are not proud of. Maybe you made decisions you wish you could change. Maybe you trusted the wrong people. Maybe you stayed somewhere too long. Maybe you ignored warning signs because you wanted something to work. Maybe you gave your heart to people who didn't know how to handle it. But your past is information, not your identity. You can learn from yesterday without living there. You can acknowledge your mistakes without becoming your mistakes. You can remember what happened without allowing what happened to control what happens next. God is not asking you to pretend that you never experienced pain. He is teaching you that pain does not have to become your permanent address. Look at how a scar works. A scar reminds you that something happened, but it also reminds you that your body had the ability to heal. The scar does not mean the wound is still open. In the same way, some experiences may leave marks on your heart, but those marks do not mean you are broken forever. You survived, you learned, you grew, and now you can move differently. So the next time someone makes you feel small, remember that their opinion is not a measurement of your destiny. The next time you compare yourself to another woman, remember that you are looking at her chapter while living inside your own. The next time you feel behind, remember that progress is not always visible. God may be changing your life by first changing the woman who is living it. And perhaps that is why some things have become uncomfortable. Perhaps the old version of you is no longer able to fit into the new life you are being prepared for. You are becoming more selective, more intentional, more peaceful, more courageous, more aware of your value. And that transformation may confuse people who only knew the old you. Let them be confused. You don't need to shrink yourself to make somebody else comfortable. You don't need to apologize for becoming stronger. You don't need to feel guilty because you finally started choosing yourself in healthy ways. Dear woman, lift your head. There is more inside you than you have discovered. There are dreams you buried because somebody laughed at them. There are abilities you ignored because somebody convinced you that you weren't capable. There are opportunities you avoided because fear told you that you would fail. But what if you stopped listening to fear? What if you gave yourself permission to try again? What if the next chapter of your life begins with one simple decision? I will no longer define myself by what happened to me. I will define myself by who I am becoming. Because the woman you are becoming does not need everyone's approval. She needs courage. She needs discipline. She needs patience. She needs faith in the process. And most importantly, she needs to understand that her value was never determined by somebody else's ability to recognize it. A diamond does not become valuable because somebody finally notices it. It was valuable before anybody saw it. And you, dear woman, do not become worthy when someone finally chooses you, loves you, promotes you, praises you, or recognizes you. You were worthy before the applause. You were worthy before the success. You were worthy before the breakthrough. You were worthy even during the season when you were struggling to believe it yourself. So walk into this next chapter differently. Don't walk like a woman who is waiting for permission. Walk like a woman who understands that her story is still being written. Walk with your head high. Walk with wisdom. Walk with patience, walk with purpose, because God is changing the way you see yourself. And when your vision of yourself changes, the way you live begins to change too. And one day you will look back and realize that the greatest change was not simply what happened around you. The greatest change was what God did within you. Dear woman, sometimes the hardest thing God can do for your future is remove what you have become comfortable with in your present. We often pray for God to bring something new into our lives, but we forget that sometimes the new cannot enter until we release the old. We ask for a better life while holding tightly to people, habits, environments, and situations that have already completed their purpose. We say, God, give me something better, while secretly saying, but please don't take this away. And sometimes the very thing you are afraid to lose is the very thing that is preventing you from becoming who you are supposed to become. There are people who are only meant to walk with you for a season. There are relationships that taught you something but were never designed to last forever. There are opportunities that looked perfect at the beginning but eventually became places of exhaustion. There are environments where you once belonged but now feel completely out of place. And sometimes you keep asking yourself, why doesn't this feel right anymore? Maybe it is because you have changed. Think about a pair of shoes you loved when you were younger. You may have worn them everywhere. They were comfortable. They were familiar. You knew exactly how they felt. But eventually your feet grew and those same shoes began to hurt. The shoes did not suddenly become bad. They simply no longer fit the person you had become. Some things in your life are like those shoes. They may not have been terrible. They may not have been evil. They may have even been good for you once, but good for yesterday does not always mean right for tomorrow. And this is where many people get stuck. They confuse familiarity with purpose. They think, I've known this person for years, so I must keep them in my life. They think, I've worked here for so long, so I can't leave. They think, I've invested so much into this relationship, so I have to keep fighting for it. But sometimes the amount of time you invested into something is exactly why you struggle to let it go. You think about the years. You think about the memories. You think about everything you sacrificed. You think about what it could have been. But dear woman, you cannot keep sacrificing your future to protect your past. Sometimes God closes a door because you would keep standing in that doorway forever if he didn't. You may cry when the door closes. You may question why it happened. You may wonder why something you wanted so badly suddenly disappeared. But later, you may discover that what felt like rejection was actually redirection. Imagine a woman who applies for a job she desperately wants. She prepares for the interview. She imagines herself working there. She tells her family about it. She believes this is finally her opportunity. Then she receives an email saying, we have decided to move forward with another candidate. She is disappointed. She feels embarrassed. She thinks, maybe I'm not good enough. But months later, she finds another opportunity, one she never would have considered if she had gotten the first job. That second opportunity gives her better experience, better growth, better connections, and a completely different future. What looked like a closed door was not the end of her story. It was a change of direction. That is why you have to stop calling every ending a failure. Some endings are protection, some endings are preparation, some endings are invitations to grow, and some endings are simply God saying, you cannot carry this into where I am taking you. Dear woman, you may be holding on to something because you are afraid that nothing better will come. But But fear has a way of making temporary situations look permanent. Fear whispers, if you let this person go, you will be alone. Fear says, if you leave this situation, you will have nothing. Fear says, if you stop accepting this treatment, nobody will want you. But you need to understand something. Being alone for a season is better than being surrounded by people who constantly destroy your peace. Peace has value. Your emotional energy has value. Your time has value. Your future has value. You cannot keep giving all of those things away simply because you are afraid of an empty space. Sometimes the empty space is necessary because God cannot fill a hand that refuses to open. You cannot receive something new while holding on to something old with both hands. There is a woman listening right now who needs to release the guilt of walking away from something that was hurting her. Maybe she has spent months thinking, maybe I should have stayed. Maybe I should have tried harder. Maybe I should have been more patient. But there comes a point when patience becomes self-abandonment. There comes a point when forgiveness does not mean continued access. There comes a point when loving someone does not mean allowing them to repeatedly damage your peace. You can forgive and still create distance. You can care and still choose yourself. You can appreciate what someone once meant to you and still accept that their chapter in your life has ended. That is maturity. That is growth. And that is not cruelty. Sometimes people will accuse you of changing because they preferred the version of you who had no boundaries. The version who always said yes. The version who always answered. The version who always sacrificed. The version who tolerated disrespect because she was afraid of losing people. But God may be teaching you that you don't have to keep losing yourself just to keep someone else. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to say, this is no longer healthy for me. You are allowed to choose peace. And when God removes something, don't immediately run after it. Sit with the silence, listen, learn. Ask yourself what this season is teaching you. Because sometimes you don't understand the purpose of an ending while you're standing in the middle of it. A farmer does not look at a seed underground and think nothing is happening. He understands that growth can happen where his eyes cannot see it. In the same way, your life may look empty right now, but God can be preparing something beneath the surface. Don't mistake silence for absence. Don't mistake waiting for failure. Don't mistake an ending for the death of your future. Sometimes the old chapter has to close because you keep rereading it instead of writing the next one. So if someone walks away, don't automatically chase them. If an opportunity disappears, don't automatically assume you are cursed with bad luck. If a relationship ends, don't automatically believe you are unlovable. If a door closes, don't sit in front of it forever asking why. Take a breath, lift your head, and say, God, if this is no longer for me, give me the strength to release it. That prayer can change everything. Because sometimes the miracle is not God bringing something back. Sometimes the miracle is God giving you the strength to stop asking for it back. One day, you may look back at the thing you cried over and realize why it had to end. You may understand why that relationship didn't work. You may understand why that opportunity disappeared. You may understand why that person could not come with you. You may understand why certain doors remain closed. And you will realize that God was not taking your life apart. He was rearranging it. He was removing what could not survive in the future you were being prepared for. So don't be afraid of the empty space. Don't rush to fill it with the wrong people. Don't return to old situations simply because loneliness feels uncomfortable. Let the season breathe. Let yourself heal. Let yourself grow. Let God redirect you. Because sometimes what leaves your life creates the room for what belongs in your life. And dear woman, when God removes what no longer belongs, trust that your story is not becoming smaller. It is making room for something greater. Dear woman, there are seasons in life when you look at everything you have been through and wonder, why did I have to experience all of that? You remember the nights you cried quietly. You remember the disappointment you tried to hide. You remember the people you trusted who eventually let you down. You remember the opportunities that slipped away, the relationships that ended, the plans that didn't work, and the moments when you questioned whether you were strong enough to keep going. But I want you to understand something today. Your pain does not have to be the end of your story. God can turn what wounded you into what strengthens you. Sometimes we think strength means never being hurt. We think a strong woman is someone who never cries, never struggles, never gets disappointed, and always knows what to do. But that's not strength. Strength is being able to cry and still get up the next morning. Strength is being disappointed and still refusing to become bitter. Strength is losing something you loved and still believing that your life has meaning. Strength is being knocked down by circumstances and deciding that you will not stay down. Look at a tree during a storm. When the wind becomes powerful, the branches move violently. Leaves fall. Some branches may even break. From the outside, it can look like the tree is losing everything. But underneath the ground, something important is happening. The roots are being tested. The tree is learning how to withstand pressure. Your difficult seasons can do something similar. They can push your roots deeper. They can teach you patience. They can develop your wisdom. They can show you who you really are when life stops being comfortable. There is a woman listening right now who thinks her hardest season was evidence that she was failing. But maybe that season was developing the strength you will need for the future you are praying for. Think about a woman who loses her job unexpectedly. At first, she feels completely defeated. She had responsibilities, and she had bills, she had plans. She thought she knew what the next few years would look like. Suddenly, everything changed. For weeks, she wakes up wondering what she's going to do. She sends applications and receives rejection after rejection. She begins questioning herself. But instead of allowing rejection to destroy her, she begins learning something new. She improves her skills. She becomes more disciplined. She discovers abilities she never knew she had. Eventually, she finds an opportunity that takes her in a completely different direction. Now, imagine asking her years later, would you go back and change that difficult season? Maybe she would say, I would never choose the pain, but I wouldn't erase what it taught me. That's the difference between surviving pain and allowing pain to transform you. Dear woman, what happened to you may have been painful, but it does not have to make you powerless. You can take the lesson without carrying the wound forever. You can remember the experience without allowing it to control your future. You can say, yes, that hurt me, but it will not define me. Maybe somebody betrayed your trust. You gave them your heart, your loyalty, your time, and your confidence, and they disappointed you. After that experience, you started building walls around yourself. You stopped trusting people. You stopped believing that genuine relationships were possible. But don't allow one person's behavior to convince you that everybody is the same. Don't allow one bad chapter to make you afraid of the entire book. You may have to become wiser, but you don't have to become bitter. There is a difference. Wisdom says, I learned from what happened. Bitterness says, everyone will hurt me. Wisdom creates boundaries. Bitterness creates walls. Wisdom protects your future. Bitterness imprisons you in your past. And God wants you free. Maybe your pain came from rejection. You wanted to be chosen, but someone chose somebody else. You wanted the opportunity, but someone else received it. You wanted the relationship, but it ended. You wanted to be appreciated, but instead you were overlooked. And rejection can make you question your value. You begin thinking, what's wrong with me? But listen carefully. Someone's inability to recognize your value does not reduce your value. A diamond does not become less valuable because somebody doesn't know how to recognize it. You don't become less worthy because someone didn't choose you. You don't become less capable because someone rejected your application. You don't become less beautiful because somebody failed to appreciate you. You don't become less important because somebody walked away. Sometimes rejection simply redirects you toward a place where your gifts can actually be recognized. Think about how many successful people have experienced rejection before their breakthrough. They applied, they were told no, they tried again, they failed, they adjusted, they learned, they kept moving. The difference wasn't that they'd never experienced rejection. The difference was that rejection didn't get the final word, and neither should your pain. Dear woman, your tears are not proof that you are weak. There are tears that wash away exhaustion. There are tears that release years of pressure. There are tears that come when you finally admit that something hurt. Cry if you need to cry. Rest if you need to rest. Take a moment if you need to take a moment. But don't build your home in the place where you were wounded. Visit the pain. Learn from it, heal from it, then keep walking. Because there is still life ahead of you. There are mornings you haven't experienced yet. There are opportunities you haven't seen yet. There are conversations you haven't had yet. There are people you haven't met yet. There are dreams you haven't pursued yet. And you cannot allow something that happened yesterday to steal everything that could happen tomorrow. Maybe you have spent years saying, I am damaged. Change the language. Say, I am healing. Instead of saying, I am behind, say, I am growing at my own pace. Instead of saying, I failed, say, I learned something. Instead of saying, my life is over, say, this chapter is difficult, but the story is not finished. Your words matter because the way you speak to yourself shapes the way you approach your life. If you constantly tell yourself that you cannot, eventually you stop trying. But when you remind yourself that you can learn, grow, adapt, and begin again, you create room for possibility. God can use your pain to develop a woman who is more compassionate, more discerning, more courageous, and more intentional. The woman who has suffered can become the woman who knows how to comfort others. The woman who has been rejected can become the woman who teaches others not to measure their worth through acceptance. The woman who has experienced failure can become the woman who refuses to give up when things become difficult. Your scars can become reminders of survival. Your difficult seasons can become lessons. Your tears can become evidence that you care deeply and still found the courage to continue. So don't be ashamed of everything you've been through. You don't have to tell everybody your story, but you should stop being ashamed of having one. Your past may explain you, but it does not own you. And I want you to remember this: when life becomes difficult again, pain is an experience, not an identity. You experience disappointment. You are not disappointment. You experience failure. You are not a failure. You experience rejection. You are not rejected. You experience loss. You are not lost. There is still something inside you that circumstances could not destroy. There is still a dream inside you. There is still courage inside you. There is still purpose inside you. And God can take the very thing you thought would break you and use it to reveal how strong you have become. So, dear woman, don't run from every difficult experience. Learn from it. Don't ask only, why did this happen to me? Ask, what can this teach me? Don't ask only, why did they leave? Ask, what did I learn about myself? Don't ask only, why did that door close? Ask, what direction is my life taking now? Because when your perspective changes, your pain begins to have a different meaning. One day you may look back at the season that once brought you to your knees and realize that it was also the season that taught you how to stand. You may look back at the person who broke your trust and realize that the experience taught you boundaries. You may look back at the opportunity you lost and realize it forced you to discover another path. You may look back at your hardest days and realize that you became stronger there. So keep going, dear woman. Not because everything is easy. Keep going because your story is bigger than this moment. Keep going because the pain is not permanent. Keep going because the woman you are becoming is stronger than the woman who first entered this difficult season. And when you finally reach the other side, you won't simply say, I survived. You will say, I survived, I learned, I grew, and God used every difficult season to make me stronger. Dear woman, there is a season in your life when you have to understand that preparation can look a lot like waiting. You may be looking around wondering, when is my life going to change? When is my opportunity coming? When will everything finally begin to make sense? You may feel as though you have been standing in the same place for too long. But what if you're not standing still? What if God is preparing you in ways you cannot see yet? Sometimes the most important work happens before the breakthrough becomes visible. Now, think about a building. Before people walk into a beautiful building, they see the finished walls, the windows, the lights, and the decorations, but they don't see the months of work underneath it. They don't see the foundation being measured. They don't see the ground being prepared. They don't see the pipes, wiring, and structure hidden behind the walls. If you only looked at the outside during the early stages, you might think nothing important was happening. But everything was happening. The foundation was being built, and without the foundation, the beautiful building could never stand. Your life can be the same way. You may be looking at your circumstances and thinking nothing is happening, but God may be preparing your foundation. He may be changing your mindset before changing your situation. He may be teaching you patience before giving you something that requires patience. He may be teaching you discipline before giving you greater responsibility. He may be teaching you confidence before placing you in a room where you will need to use your voice. You keep asking for the next level, but God may be preparing you to handle the next level, because getting the opportunity is one thing. Being ready for the opportunity is another. Dear woman, don't despise the season you are in simply because it doesn't look like the season you want. Sometimes preparation feels ordinary. It looks like waking up every morning and doing the work even when nobody notices. It looks like learning a new skill when nobody is applauding. It looks like saving money when nobody knows why. It looks like becoming disciplined when there is no immediate reward. It looks like healing emotionally before entering another relationship. It looks like learning to communicate better, manage your time, control your reactions, and believe in yourself again. Those small things may not look impressive today, but they can completely change your tomorrow. Think about a woman who wants to start a successful business. She dreams about having a beautiful office, successful clients, financial freedom, and the ability to help her family. But in the beginning, she has almost nothing. She is learning, she makes mistakes, she watches tutorials, she studies her competition. She learns how to communicate with customers. She learns how to manage money. She wakes up early and works when nobody is watching from the outside. It may look like she is doing very little, but she preparing. Then one day an opportunity comes that requires exactly the skills she has been developing. Suddenly what seemed like wasted time becomes preparation. What seemed like slow progress becomes an advantage. What seemed like an ordinary season becomes the reason she was ready. That is why you cannot always judge your life by immediate results. Some things take time because you are becoming the person who can carry them. Dear woman, perhaps you have been asking God for a better relationship, but maybe He is first teaching you how to recognize healthy love. Perhaps you have been asking for financial increase, but maybe He is first teaching you discipline with what you already have. Perhaps you have been asking for a leadership position, but maybe He is first teaching you how to lead yourself. Perhaps you have been asking for a bigger opportunity, but maybe He is first teaching you how to manage the small opportunity in front of you. Because if you cannot manage a little, having more will not automatically make life better. More money requires more wisdom. More responsibility requires more discipline. More influence requires more character. More opportunity requires more preparation. And sometimes the delay is not punishment. Sometimes the delay is protection. Imagine if a young woman received everything she wanted before she had developed the maturity to handle it. She might receive money and lose it. She might receive attention and become dependent on it. She might receive success and allow success to destroy her peace. She might enter a relationship before understanding her own boundaries and repeat the same patterns that hurt her before. Sometimes you think you're ready because you are excited, but excitement is not always preparation. God knows the difference. So instead of constantly asking, why isn't it happening yet? Start asking, what can I become while I am waiting? That question can transform your entire season. If the door hasn't opened, prepare. If the opportunity hasn't arrived, prepare. If the answer hasn't come, prepare. If your life hasn't changed yet, prepare, read, learn, Practice, save, heal, grow, build your confidence, improve your communication, develop your skills, strengthen your discipline, take care of yourself, and don't underestimate small progress. A woman who reads 10 pages every day may not notice a huge difference after 1 week, but after a year she has read thousands of pages. A woman who saves a small amount consistently may not feel wealthy today, but over time she can create financial stability. A woman who exercises for a short time every day may not see dramatic results immediately, but eventually her body becomes stronger. A woman who spends a few minutes each day developing a skill may eventually become excellent at something that once felt impossible. Growth is often invisible before it becomes undeniable. So don't quit simply because you cannot see the results yet. The seed does not become a tree overnight. The sunrise does not happen all at once. A woman does not become confident in a single day. Transformation happens gradually, and sometimes you are closer than you think. Dear woman, there may be moments when you look at other people's success and feel like your life is moving too slowly. You see someone getting married, someone buying a house, someone getting promoted, someone traveling, someone starting a business, someone achieving a dream you have been praying about for years, and you begin asking, when will it be my turn? But remember this, someone else's timing is not evidence that your timing is wrong. You are not running the same race. You have different experiences, different responsibilities, different lessons, different preparation, different timing. Don't allow somebody else's highlight to make you hate your own process. You are seeing their results. You are living through your preparation. And preparation is not glamorous. Nobody celebrates the woman who quietly works on herself at midnight. Nobody sees the hours she spends learning. Nobody sees the tears she wipes away before starting again. Nobody sees the discipline behind her future success. But God sees it, and one day the results will speak for the work nobody noticed. So when you feel like nothing is happening, remember the foundation. When you feel forgotten, remember the seed. When you feel behind, remember that growth takes time. When you feel impatient, remember that preparation protects you from receiving something before you are ready. You don't need to force your future. You don't need to manipulate circumstances. You don't need to chase every opportunity. You need to become ready. Because when the right door opens, you don't want to spend your time asking, am I capable of this? You want to walk through that door knowing, I have been preparing for this. Dear woman, your current season may not look impressive, but don't underestimate what God can build in a quiet season. Maybe this is the season where you become disciplined. Maybe this is the season where you discover your confidence. Maybe this is the season where you learn to stop settling. Maybe this is the season where you finally understand your worth. Maybe this is the season where you stop waiting for somebody else to save you and start taking responsibility for the life you want to build. Whatever this season is teaching you, don't waste it. Use it. Grow through it. Learn through it. Build through it. Because one day, the woman who is patiently preparing today may become the woman everyone wonders about tomorrow. They will see the confidence, but they won't see the years of preparation. They will see the success, but they won't see the failures. They will see the opportunity, but they won't see the waiting. They will see the result, but they won't see the process. And you will know. You will know that the quiet season wasn't empty. It was building you. So don't be discouraged because you are not where you want to be yet. Be encouraged because you are not where you used to be. Keep moving. Keep learning. Keep becoming. Keep preparing. Because God may be preparing you for a season that requires a stronger, wiser, more confident version of you. And when that season arrives, you won't have to become someone else. You will simply become the woman you were being prepared to be all along. Dear woman, there comes a moment when you have to make a decision that can completely change the direction of your life. You have to stop settling for what is familiar and start believing that you deserve what is healthy, meaningful, and aligned with the life you are trying to build. And I want you to understand that settling does not always look obvious. Sometimes settling looks like staying in a place where you are constantly unhappy because you are afraid of change. Sometimes it looks like accepting disrespect because you are afraid of being alone. Sometimes it looks like remaining in a job that destroys your confidence because you have convinced yourself that nothing better will come. Sometimes it looks like shrinking your dreams because somebody else told you that they were unrealistic. But dear woman, you were not created to spend your entire life accepting less simply because less is familiar. There's a difference between appreciating what you have and settling for what hurts you. You can be grateful for your life while still believing that your life can grow. You can appreciate the people around you while still recognizing that some relationships are no longer healthy for you. You can be thankful for your current job while still preparing yourself for a better opportunity. Gratitude does not mean you have to stop growing. Think about a woman sitting in a small room with a tiny window. She has lived there for years. She knows every corner of that room. She knows where the furniture is, where the light comes in, and how everything works. The room is familiar, but the room is also too small for the life she dreams about. Every time she imagines moving somewhere bigger, fear tells her, at least this place is safe. That is how settling works. It makes the familiar feel safer than the unknown. You may know that something isn't right, but because you've become accustomed to it, you convince yourself that it is acceptable. You say, at least I have something. But dear woman, having something is not always better than having peace. You don't have to remain somewhere simply because you are afraid of what comes next. Maybe you've been accepting the bare minimum from someone because you remember how good they were in the beginning. You keep holding on to old memories while ignoring the reality of today. You keep thinking, maybe they will change. Maybe things will go back to how they used to be. But you cannot build your future on somebody's potential. Look at their actions. Look at the pattern. Look at how you feel around them. And most importantly, look at what staying is doing to you. Are you becoming more confident or less confident? Are you becoming more peaceful or constantly anxious? Are you becoming more yourself or slowly disappearing? Because the wrong environment can make a beautiful woman question her own beauty. The wrong relationship can make a loving woman believe she is difficult to love. The wrong workplace can make a talented woman believe she has no ability. The wrong circle can make an ambitious woman feel guilty for wanting more. And sometimes the problem isn't that you are asking for too much. Sometimes you have simply been asking the wrong people. Dear woman, stop reducing your standards just because someone else refuses to meet them. This does not mean expecting perfection from people. Nobody is perfect. It means knowing the difference between someone's imperfections and someone's repeated disrespect. It means understanding that mistakes can be forgiven while patterns still need boundaries. You don't have to accept everything just because you are compassionate. You don't have to tolerate everything just because you are patient. You don't have to keep explaining your pain to someone who has repeatedly shown you that they don't care. There is strength in saying, this is no longer acceptable for me. And sometimes that sentence will change your life. Think about a woman who has always been the person everyone calls when they need help. She gives her time, her energy, her money, her advice, and her emotional support. Whenever somebody needs something, she is there. But when she needs help, suddenly everyone is busy. For years, she tells herself, that's just who I am. I love helping people. But eventually she becomes exhausted. She realizes that she has been giving from an empty cup. One day she starts saying no, not because she stopped caring, but because she finally started caring about herself too. At first, people become surprised. Some become angry. Some say, you've changed. And she thinks, yes, I have. Because sometimes growth looks like becoming unavailable for things that constantly drain you. You are allowed to protect your time. You are allowed to protect your energy. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to say no without writing a 5-page explanation. Dear woman, you do not have to prove that you are a good person by constantly exhausting yourself. You can be kind and still have boundaries. You can be generous and still be wise. You can forgive and still walk away. You can love people and still refuse to let them control your life. And when you stop settling, something beautiful begins to happen. You start discovering who you really are. You start asking yourself what you actually want instead of what everyone else expects from you. You start making decisions based on purpose instead of fear. You start realizing that being alone temporarily is not the same thing as being lonely forever. You start understanding that losing something unhealthy can create space for something healthier. And this is where many women become afraid. They say, but what if nothing better comes? What if it does? What if the empty space is temporary? What if your life is not ending but expanding? What if God is trying to teach you that you don't have to hold on to something simply because you don't know what comes next? Imagine standing at the edge of a road you've never traveled before. Behind you is the road you know. It may be uncomfortable, but at least you know where it goes. Ahead of you is uncertainty. Which direction requires courage? The unknown. But sometimes the unknown is exactly where your growth is waiting. Dear woman, don't let fear convince you that your current situation is your only option. There are skills you can learn. There are opportunities you can pursue. There are boundaries you can establish. There are dreams you can rebuild. There are healthier environments you can move toward. There are new chapters you can create. You may not be able to change everything overnight, but you can change your next decision. You can update your resume. You can start learning. You can save a little money. You can have an honest conversation. You can stop responding to every message. You can walk away from unnecessary drama. You can start taking care of your body and mind. You can begin again. Small decisions become a different life. And don't underestimate the power of one decision. A woman who decides to respect herself today may make different choices tomorrow. A woman who decides to learn today may have a completely different career years from now. A woman who decides to stop chasing validation may eventually discover a confidence that nobody can take away. A woman who decides that peace matters may finally stop returning to places that constantly disturb her. Dear woman, you do not need to become selfish. You need to become intentional. There is a difference. Selfishness says, only I matter. Intentionality says, I matter too. And you do matter. Your dreams matter. Your time matters. Your peace matters. Your future matters. Your voice matters. Your life matters. So don't settle simply because someone else tells you that you should be grateful for the bare minimum. Don't let fear convince you that you should accept disrespect because that's just how life is. Don't let loneliness push you back toward people who made you lose yourself. Don't let temporary discomfort make you abandon permanent growth. God can take you into a season where you finally understand that you don't have to beg for what should be given with respect. You don't have to chase what is running away. You don't have to convince someone to value you. You don't have to make yourself smaller so someone else can feel bigger. You don't have to remain where you are constantly reminded that you are not enough. Stand up. Know your value. Work on yourself. Raise your standards with wisdom, and trust that leaving what is unhealthy does not mean you are losing everything. Sometimes you are finally making room to receive what is healthier. One day, you may look back at the moment when you stopped settling and realize that it was one of the most important decisions you ever made. Because you didn't simply walk away from something, you walked towards yourself. And dear woman, when you finally understand your worth, you will stop accepting situations that require you to abandon it. Dear woman, there are moments in life when you look at your circumstances and think, I have done everything I can. I have worked hard. I have waited. I have tried. So when is something finally going to open for me? Maybe you have watched other people receive opportunities while you were still waiting for yours. Maybe you have knocked on doors that never opened. Maybe you have applied, called, tried, started again, and still found yourself standing in the same place. But I want you to hear me clearly. A closed door does not mean there are no doors left for you. Sometimes the opportunity you are praying for is not going to arrive through the path you expected. Sometimes God opens a door you never knew existed. Sometimes the opportunity comes through a conversation you almost ignored, a skill you almost stopped learning, a person you almost didn't meet, or a decision you almost didn't make. You have to stop believing that your future depends on one opportunity. Your future is bigger than one job. Your future is bigger than one relationship. Your future is bigger than one rejection. Your future is bigger than one mistake. There are doors you haven't even discovered yet. Think about a woman who applies for her dream job. She prepares her resume, practices her interview answers, dresses carefully, walks into the interview believing this could be the beginning of something new, and then she receives the message, "Unfortunately, we have decided to move forward with another candidate." Her heart drops. She thinks, "Why does this always happen to me?" For a moment, she feels rejected. But instead of allowing that rejection to become her identity, she keeps moving. She continues learning. She improves her skills. She applies somewhere else. She talks to someone in her network. She takes a small opportunity that doesn't look impressive at first. And that small opportunity introduces her to someone who later recommends her for a position she never would have found on her own. Suddenly, she realizes something. The first door wasn't the only door. It was simply the door she could see. Dear woman, that is what I want you to understand about your life. You can only see what is in front of you, but God can see what is ahead. You see the rejection. He can see the redirection. You see the delay. He can see the preparation. You see the closed door. He can see another entrance. You see what you lost. He can see what you are about to gain. And sometimes the biggest mistake you can make is becoming so focused on the door that closed that you fail to notice the door opening beside you. Maybe you lost a relationship you thought would last forever. You spent months asking why it ended. You replayed conversations. You wondered what you could have done differently. You thought your life was going backward. But eventually you began rebuilding yourself. You started taking care of your peace. You started developing your confidence. You started focusing on your goals. You began learning who you were outside of that relationship. And one day you realize, I thought losing that person destroyed my future, but losing them gave me the space to discover myself. Sometimes the door you desperately wanted was connected to a room you had already outgrown. And God may be saying, you keep asking me to reopen the door, but I am trying to show you a different direction. Dear woman, don't be afraid of unfamiliar opportunities. Sometimes the next chapter will not look like the previous one. You may have planned one career and discover another. You may have expected to live one kind of life and find yourself building something completely different. You may have imagined your success coming through one specific person or one specific opportunity, but instead it comes through your own persistence, discipline, and courage. That is why you have to remain open. Don't say, it has to happen this way. Say, God, show me the way. There is a huge difference. When you insist on one specific outcome, you can become blind to other possibilities. But when you remain open, you begin noticing opportunities that were always around you. Maybe someone asks you to help with a project. Maybe you discover a skill you never knew you had. Maybe you meet someone who teaches you something valuable. Maybe you start a small idea that eventually becomes something significant. Maybe an unexpected conversation changes your perspective. The opportunity may not arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives quietly. Sometimes it looks ordinary. Sometimes it looks too small to matter. But don't underestimate small beginnings. A tree begins as a seed. A business begins as an idea. A career begins with one skill. A new life can begin with one decision. And a major change can begin with one opportunity that nobody else considers important. Think about a woman who begins learning a skill from her home. At first, she only spends an hour a day practicing. Nobody takes her seriously. Her friends don't understand why she is spending so much time learning. She doesn't make much money from it in the beginning, but she continues. 1 month becomes 6 months. 6 months becomes a year. Her skill improves, her confidence improves, her network grows. Then someone notices her work and gives her a bigger opportunity. People may look at her success and say, she got lucky. But they didn't see the preparation. They didn't see the night she practiced. They didn't see the mistakes. They didn't see the time she wanted to quit. They only saw the open door. They didn't see how long she had been preparing to walk through it. Dear woman, sometimes God opens doors, but you still have to walk through them. You cannot stand outside an opportunity forever because you are afraid of failing. You cannot keep saying, what if I am not good enough? Or what if you are? What if you have been underestimating yourself? What if the opportunity is not asking you to be perfect? What if it is asking you to be willing to learn? You don't have to know everything before you begin. You don't have to feel completely confident before taking the step. Courage does not mean you have no fear. Courage means fear does not get to make the decision for you. So when the opportunity comes, don't talk yourself out of it. Don't immediately say someone else is more qualified. Don't assume you don't belong. Don't reject yourself before anybody else has the chance to consider you. Apply, ask, try, learn, step forward. Let the opportunity decide whether you are ready, not your fear. And if you fail, learn, adjust, try again. Because failure is not proof that you should stop. Sometimes failure is information. It tells you what needs to improve. It shows you where your preparation is incomplete. It teaches you what success requires. Dear woman, stop thinking that every no is a final answer. Sometimes no simply means not this. Not this person, not this job, not this opportunity, not this timing, not this direction. And there is freedom in understanding that. You don't have to fight every closed door. You don't have to spend years trying to convince something to work. Sometimes you simply need to turn around and look again. There may be another path. There may be another opportunity. There may be another possibility. And perhaps the greatest thing God wants you to develop in this season is not desperation, but expectation. Expectation says, I don't know exactly how it will happen, but I believe something can change. Expectation keeps you moving, it keeps you learning, it keeps you watching, it keeps you prepared. So keep your eyes open. Pay attention to the conversations you have. Pay attention to the ideas that keep returning to your mind. Pay attention to the skills you feel drawn to develop. Pay attention to opportunities that align with your values and goals. Pay attention to the places where you feel yourself growing, because sometimes the answer doesn't look like the answer you imagined. Maybe you have been praying for a door to open while God has been preparing you to build your own door. Maybe you've been waiting for somebody to give you an opportunity while God has been teaching you how to create one. Maybe you have been waiting for permission while you already have enough ability to take the first step. Dear woman, don't underestimate yourself. You may be closer than you think. The opportunity you have been waiting for may come after one more attempt. One more application, one more conversation, one more lesson, one more brave decision, one more morning when you choose not to quit. So don't allow yesterday's rejection to determine tomorrow's confidence. Don't allow one closed door to convince you that your entire future is closed. Don't allow fear to make you miss something that was created for your growth. When God opens a door, walk through it with courage. When He redirects you, follow the new direction with wisdom. When something doesn't work, learn from it and keep moving. Because your life is not limited to what you can currently see. There are opportunities you haven't encountered. There are people you haven't met. There are places you haven't reached. There are skills you haven't developed. There are versions of yourself you haven't discovered. And there are doors you haven't even knocked on yet. So keep preparing, keep believing, keep learning, keep moving. Because the door that opens next may make you understand why some of the previous doors had to close. And one day, you may look back at everything that didn't work and realize that God wasn't denying your future. He was directing you toward the door that was always meant to open. Dear woman, there comes a point in your life when you realize that the greatest change God can bring is not simply changing what is around you, but changing who you are on the inside. You may be asking God for a better life, a better opportunity, greater success, more peace, better relationships, and a brighter future. But sometimes before the circumstances change, the woman must change. Before the new chapter appears, you have to become ready for it. Before the doors open, your mindset has to become strong enough to walk through them. You may look at yourself today and only see the woman who struggled, cried, failed, waited, and started over. But God can see the woman you are becoming. He can see beyond your current circumstances. He can see the confidence that is being developed inside you. He can see the wisdom that came from your difficult experiences. He can see the strength you gained from the seasons when you had nobody but yourself to encourage you. And I want you to understand this. You are not becoming a different woman because you are trying to impress the world. You are becoming a stronger woman because you finally understand what your life is worth. Think about a butterfly. Before anyone sees its beauty, there is a hidden process. It doesn't simply wake up one morning and become something extraordinary. There is a period of transformation that happens away from the eyes of everyone else. And sometimes your life feels like that. You are in a hidden season. People may not understand what is happening. They may not see your growth. They may not recognize that change is taking place inside you. But just because people cannot see your transformation does not mean it isn't happening. Maybe you used to react immediately when someone hurt you, but now you pause before responding. That is growth. Maybe you used to chase people who didn't value you, but now you understand that you don't have to convince anyone to stay. That is growth. Maybe you used to spend every night worrying about what people thought of you, but now you are learning to trust your own decisions. That is growth. Maybe you used to be terrified of starting over, but now you understand that starting over can be the beginning of something better. That is growth. And don't underestimate these changes simply because they don't come with applause. Some of the biggest victories in your life will happen quietly. Nobody will congratulate you because you finally learned to control your emotions. Nobody will give you a trophy because you stopped returning to unhealthy situations. Nobody will throw a celebration because you started respecting your own time. But these are victories. These are signs that you are becoming stronger, dear woman. The old version of you may have survived by tolerating things that hurt her. The new version of you will learn to protect her peace. The old version of you may have believed that being loved meant constantly sacrificing yourself. The new version will understand that healthy love does not require you to disappear. The old version of you may have believed that success belonged to other people. The new version will begin asking, why not me? That question can change your life. Why not me? Why can't I learn? Why can't I succeed? Why can't I build something? Why can't I start again? Why can't I become confident? Why can't I create a better future? Why not me? You don't need to have everything figured out today. You simply need to stop convincing yourself that your future is impossible. Think about a woman who spent years believing she wasn't intelligent enough to build a career. She had failed at something important in her past, and that failure became the lens through which she viewed herself. Every opportunity frightened her because she thought, what if I fail again? Then she decided to learn one new thing. She studied, she practiced, she made mistakes, she tried again. Eventually something changed, not because the world suddenly became easier, but because she became more capable. Her confidence didn't come first. Her action came first. Then confidence followed. That is how transformation often happens. You don't always feel confident before you begin. Sometimes you begin and confidence grows because you kept going. Dear woman, don't wait until you feel completely ready. You may never feel completely ready. Don't wait until you have no fear. You may always feel some fear. Don't wait until everyone supports you. Some people may never understand your vision. Start anyway, learn anyway, build anyway, grow anyway. Because the woman you are becoming is not created in one dramatic moment. She is created through hundreds of small decisions. Every time you choose discipline instead of excuses, you become stronger. Every time you choose peace instead of unnecessary drama, you become wiser. Every time you choose growth instead of comfort, you become more capable. Every time you choose to keep going after disappointment, you become more resilient. Every time you choose to believe that your future can be better than your past, you take another step toward becoming that woman. And one day, you will look back and realize that you changed without even noticing it. The things that once controlled you don't control you anymore. The opinions that once destroyed your confidence don't have the same power. The people you once chased no longer determine your happiness. The situations that once made you feel helpless no longer define your identity. You have become different, stronger, wiser, calmer, more intentional, more confident. And that's what I mean when I say God is changing your life. Sometimes the change starts inside you before it ever appears around you. Dear woman, don't be discouraged if your circumstances haven't changed yet. Maybe your mindset is changing first. Maybe your habits are changing first. Maybe your confidence is changing first. Maybe your standards are changing first. Maybe your ability to recognize the right opportunities is changing first. Because if God gave you everything you wanted while you were still carrying the mindset that held you back, you might not know how to keep it. Imagine giving a woman a successful business when she hasn't learned discipline. Imagine giving her financial success when she hasn't learned responsibility. Imagine giving her influence when she hasn't learned humility. Imagine giving her a healthy relationship when she hasn't learned boundaries. The blessing can be real, but the person receiving it must also grow. That's why preparation matters. That's why growth matters. That's why becoming matters. You are not simply waiting for a better life. You are becoming the woman who can live that better life. And perhaps that is why some things feel uncomfortable right now. You are outgrowing old habits. You are questioning old beliefs. You are changing your priorities. You're becoming more selective about who gets access to you. You're becoming more protective of your peace. You're becoming more serious about your future. And people who only knew the old you may not understand the new you. They may say, "You've changed." And your answer can simply be, "Yes, I have." Because change is not always something to apologize for. Sometimes change is evidence that you finally listened to the lessons life was trying to teach you. Dear woman, don't be afraid of becoming someone you have never been before. You cannot build a new life while remaining exactly the same person who created the old one. If you want different results, you have to make different decisions. If you want peace, you may have to stop entertaining chaos. If you want growth, you may have to leave comfort. If you want confidence, you may have to start keeping promises to yourself. If you want success, you may have to become disciplined when nobody is watching. And if you want a different future, you have to stop allowing your past to make every decision for you. Your past can be a teacher. It does not have to be your prison. Remember the woman you were 5 years ago. Maybe she had dreams she never pursued. Maybe she was afraid. Maybe she made mistakes. Maybe she didn't know her worth. Maybe she accepted things she would never accept today. Don't hate that woman. Thank her. She survived long enough to become you, and now it is your responsibility to take what she learned and move forward. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to become everything overnight. Just become a little stronger, a little wiser, a little more disciplined, a little more courageous, a little more intentional. One day those small changes will become a completely different life. So, dear woman, don't look at yourself and say, "I'm not there yet." Look at yourself and say, "I'm becoming. I'm becoming stronger. I'm becoming wiser. I'm becoming more confident. I'm becoming more disciplined. I'm becoming more peaceful. I'm becoming more courageous. I'm becoming the woman who can walk into the future without being controlled by the past." And when you become that woman, you will realize something powerful. God didn't just change your circumstances. He changed you so deeply that you became capable of creating a different life. So keep becoming, keep growing, keep learning, keep moving. Don't rush the process. Don't compare your transformation to somebody else's. Don't let temporary struggles convince you that permanent change isn't happening. The woman you are becoming may not be visible to everyone yet, but she is there. She is growing. She is learning. She is rising. And one day, you will look back at this season and understand that you were not being forgotten. You were being transformed into the woman you were always meant to become.